Welcome to Norris Lake. Now in this video, I'm going to take you on a tour of the 7 major lakes that are around me here in East Tennessee, around Knoxville, Tennessee. Now the first lake here is Norris Lake. This lake is one of the deepest lakes around here. There are some parts of it that are as deep as 200 feet deep. The dam itself is one of TVA's deepest dams. So whenever they release water down the Clinch River, it is cold water, like 50-degree water during the summertime. It is a deep, cold lake. Now fishing wise, this lake is known for walleye and striped bass. Now there are other fish here. There's plenty of different species of catfish, bluegill, bass. There is a healthy smallmouth population, but it is known for walleyes and striped bass. Now there is a problem with the walleyes. Someone introduced a bait fish called alewives. From my understanding, the alewives have some kind of enzyme that hurts the walleye, which is hurting the population. It's basically a bait fish that looks like a skipjack, but it does not grow as big as skipjack grow. Another thing about this lake, which is going to be the same with all the lakes I'm going to show you, except for one, there is pollution in this lake. It's mostly from like old industry, but there's plenty of other things that are polluting this lake and the others around us. So I wouldn't really recommend eating a lot of fish out of it. However, it has so much water, it may be a little bit safer to eat maybe the walleye out of here than say one of the more shallow lakes that are around here. Now on this lake, I did catch my first ever flathead catfish when I was a kid. My dad, where he worked, they had a cabin that was on this lake, and they would give this cabin to the employees for a week at a time. And whenever my dad would get it for a week during the summertime, we would go there and I would fish, there. It was in one of the coves of Norris. What was cool about this cabin, there was a lot of box turtles around it. And in that cove, I was able to catch pretty much everything. So I caught a bluegill, I put it on a bass hook on my catfish gear, threw it out there and caught, a small flathead. And then I got another bluegill, threw it out there again and caught like a 5 to 6 pound largemouth. So I've actually have some pretty interesting memories of fishing on this lake. It's not one that I really fish too often, but I do fish a lot downstream from here. Now let me take you to the next lake. And here is Cherokee Lake. Now I really don't have much to say about this lake. This is more of a bass fishing lake, although I think there are white bass in it and flatheads. A buddy of mine told me that he found a spot where he was using like night crawlers and was catching a bunch of baby flatheads. And he told me about several like piers where really, really big flatheads were caught at. Now, I've only fished this lake a couple of times and I really didn't catch anything. So this is one of the lakes that I'm less familiar with. Still, it is a pretty sizable lake, and like the other lakes around here, there's probably some monsters swimming around in it. However, like I said, it's a bass lake. I'd say it's probably got some good smallmouth in it. I really need to read up more on this lake and try to fish it more maybe sometime in the future. With that being said, let me take you to the next lake since I really don't have much more to say about this lake. Here is Douglas Lake. Now, Douglas Lake is another lake that is near me that I really don't fish that often and I really don't know too much about. What I do know is that this is a big, like, bass tournament lake. And I'm talking about like, the Bassmaster will come here every now and then and some of the other big bass tournaments. In fact, this boat ramp is absolutely loaded with bass boats right now, and this is in the middle of the week. I have a rare, weekday off right now, and there must be a tournament going on a weekday here on Douglas Lake. Now, I have heard of big blue catfish caught out of this lake as well. So there are, some of the bigger fish in the lake. And upriver is the French Broad River and my secret fishing spot that may not exist anymore due to the hurricane. And as you can see, the lake, even though it's springtime right now, is really low, and that's because they are still cleaning out debris from the hurricane last year, the remnants of the hurricane. Now, I will try to get to that fishing spot sometime in the future again. I've already tried twice and the area was blocked off, so maybe here soon they're opening it up and I can go and see if my fishing spot actually exists. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel, because I'll probably make a video of me trying to get to my fishing spot again, or I will actually fish somewhere up there. Now let's move to some lakes I know more about. Now this is Fort Loudon Lake. This may be the lake that I have fished the most in my entire life. My parents used to take me here at some of the parks to fish, and that was ever since I was like 3 years old. So I have fished this lake my entire life. I also do some guided trips on this lake. I tried to avoid it because it's one of the main lakes in a very populated area. So you end up having apartment buildings going down the river. And I really don't like dealing with, giant 5-foot waves. Still, there is some good fishing here, and I think the lake is actually recovering. I am seeing bigger and bigger catfish caught. And they have been stocking Florida strain largemouth. And those largemouths get really big. So this is a big fish lake. Now, from what I'm told, years ago, InFisherman ran an article saying that Fort Loudon would produce a world record blue catfish someday, and I think because of that article people started fishing this lake really hard, and then the pay lake phenomenon happened, and they started pulling them out of this lake. They started pulling them out of some of the other lakes that are further downstream from here. In fact, I have talked to game wardens, and they told me that while buffalo fishing is legal here, commercial fishing, they have caught the commercial buffalo fishermen, some of them, with live trophy catfish. They find them, they let the catfish go, and then they would catch another buffalo fisherman with live trophy catfish. And while it's still a potential problem, I think most have moved on from the lake because it got depleted. And like I said, the catfish are getting bigger and bigger, so they're either end up hitting the lake again, or we'll finally get these pay lakes shut down and not have to worry about it, and maybe InFisherman will be right and a world record will be pulled from this lake. Now, I do know that a state record was caught out of this lake a few years ago. Someone had caught a big one. They didn't have a scale with them. They were begging on Facebook for someone to bring a scale out. Nobody was able to bring a scale out to them. So they measured it and then they released it. And based on the measurements using the formula, that was like 120 to 130 pound blue cat. So it's possible that there are still 100-pounders in here. It's just going to take time for more to show up. A lot of people eat the fish out of this lake, and I would highly not recommend eating anything out of Fort Loudon, but people will do it anyway. Now, because of the largemouth population, even the Bassmaster will hold tournaments on the Tennessee River. Usually they launch in Knoxville, the upper part of Fort Loudon on the Tennessee River, and the guys from up there will run all the way down here and continue on through the dams, through the canal, and just keep going for the big tournaments. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Bassmaster is going to be back like either next year or the year after. I heard someone talking about it. I haven't looked it up, but they're going to be back and doing this, this lake again, this river, lake, whatever, and they're going to be in Knoxville launching there, and fishing this lake. Now, I do have a lot of videos of me fishing this lake. Let me do an iCard above to that big fish I caught, I don't know, a few months ago when the water was rolling because of the hurricane remnants. That was 3 really good fish in a row that I caught literally right over there. And maybe one of these days I'll make a playlist of, each lake that I've fished or something. I don't know. I might do that. If you think it's a good idea, leave a comment below. Now let's go from the dirtiest lake to the cleanest lake in my area. And here is Tellico Lake. Now, the reason why I'm saying Tellico Lake is the cleanest lake around here is because years back they found the transformers that were poisoning the lake. They were in the upper part of the lake, and they were dumped there like years and years and years ago by an electric company, and they were spreading like poison within this lake. Well, they found them and they removed them, and when they started testing the catfish years later, all the smaller catfish, all the smaller fish started testing clean. This is one of the reasons why I'm trying to learn this lake myself, so I can do guided fishing trips here for people who want to catch and keep the catfish that we catch. Now, it has been a little bit difficult for me to figure it out. I've had several successful trips here and some not so successful trips, and that's both with and without clients. So I am trying to learn the lake, and even the big catfish I would consider not keeping because of the canal. There is a canal just right over there that is connected to Fort Loudon Lake. So some of the bigger catfish could have swam in here from Fort Loudon. I would not recommend eating any of the bigger fish. Now, like I said, the smaller fish I would recommend eating, especially if you go to the upper end of the lake. This is the lower end, this is the deeper end, and like I said, it is directly connected to Fort Loudon. Now, there is another problem, just like Norris Lake, the first lake that I showed you guys. There are alewives in this lake. Now, obviously, it is directly connected to Fort Loudon, so there may be alewives in Fort Loudon as well, but they are in this lake, and they are supposedly really, really thick. And I will say this, I know how to catch them. However, I won't do a video on how to catch them because the wildlife agency would get mad at me for doing that, along with a couple of other guides. Now, guides are not supposed to be taking alewives out of here to take elsewhere, but some of them have been doing that. And from my understanding, the wildlife agency has caught them doing that as well. Alewives do make excellent striper bait, and they make good cut bait for catfish. But it is one of the bait fish I tried to avoid using around here just because of the problems that they bring. Now, just real quick, another reason why this lake is a cleaner lake, all the industry that's on this lake is new industry, and all the homes are new homes. You may get a little bit of pollution from the home building and even from the new industry, but it's not as bad as like on the Tennessee River. Now, I will mention that a couple of you said that you did not like that they built Tellico because it destroyed some of the best trout fishing in the country. And it's actually the first time that I've heard of it. I do believe Tellico is a newer dam in the system. So this is, new waterway that has been covered up. And I do know there's gold in Tellico. I didn't realize that, it used to be a really good trout fishery. And now it's a giant lake. If anything, like I said, it's one of the cleaner lakes. Now, let's go to the next lake in line. And I'm probably not going to drive all the way down there. I've already been driving a lot and I'm losing sunlight. So I'm going to drive to one of the smaller areas of a very large lake. All right, the water behind me is technically Upper Watts Bar Lake. Now, I did have a conversation one time with the Tennessee Wildlife Agency, someone there. I had turned in my 52-inch muskie catch, and I put on the paperwork that it was caught in Watts Bar. And they agreed with me that technically this is Watts Bar. Watts Bar is a pretty big lake with a lot of feeder rivers like this feeding into it. That is one of the reasons why I guide in that lake the most. There's all kinds of opportunities for all kinds of fish. Like here, it's muskies, it's stripers. When you get to the main lake, blue catfish, flathead catfish, some channel catfish. There's a lot of bass, there's a lot of skipjacks, there's a lot of white bass. In general, it's a really good lake to fish, although it did have the Kingston ash spill happened in it, which is the biggest human-made industrial accident that ever happened. The ash ponds from the steam plant broke free and dumped into the Emery and Clinch River, pushed downstream into the Tennessee River, and pretty much poisoned the entire lake. And this was, I think, back in 2006. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was years and years ago, and the lake has recovered from that, and it seems to have been recovering from the pay lakes. I've been seeing bigger and bigger fish caught. It's such a large lake. There's so many remote ramps that they hit Watts Bar hard and literally wiped out. I mean, I used to be able to come here and catch 20 to 30 pound fish easily. Now it's hard to get anything over 20. But like I said, again, it is recovering. I'm seeing bigger fish pulled out of it. And I think it was either last year or the year before, I had a client catch a 46 pound flathead in my boat. It is a boat best fish that's bigger than my own personal best flathead, which is 45 pounds, so 1 pound bigger. A very large and unique waterway that holds all kinds of fish. Now, the reason why I kind of went to here is, one, like I said, I'm running out of light and I didn't want to drive all the way to the main lake, which still looks like a river. The second reason is I'd love to book some muskie trips. You know, the muskie are here year round. Summertime, I would advise against it unless we go really early morning where it's still cool. But still, I have equipment to chase muskie with, and I don't change my pricing when it comes to muskie. A lot of the muskie guides here are probably double my price, at least some of them. And it would be nice to be able to chase some muskie every now and then. You know, it's kind of an interesting fish. A lot of bass guys, I don't know about the catfishing community, but I know some of the bass fishermen, they dislike muskie because they think they eat all of their bass and stuff. To me, I like them. It's a really cool fish. I did catch a 52-incher, which is a once-in-a-lifetime fish. However, that's not the only 50-incher I've seen. There are more than one 50-incher that can easily be caught in this waterway. So someone could end up getting a once-in-a-lifetime fish in my boat, potentially on a guided trip. Now, just like anything else, you know, I have done muskie trips, and I will say that we did see muskie on my muskie trips, and they were happy. Sometimes seeing a muskie is a good thing. They are the fish of 10,000 casts. You just gotta be ready for that. Now let's move to the last lake in my area that I live close to. All right, now this is Melton Hill Lake. Now, like I said earlier, Melton Hill Lake is the lake that is closest to where I live, and I've lived here almost my entire life. I have fished a lot out of this lake. In fact, when I was younger, I caught like a 3 or 4 pound fantail goldfish out of this waterway. It's also the same waterway where my best flathead was caught out of, which was 45 pounds. And my biggest channel catfish, which was caught right over there at about 19 pounds. And funny enough, that channel catfish was caught using trout as bait. Now, while this lake is known for its flathead population, there are some big blues in here, and the Wildlife Agency stocks muskie in this lake. The state record muskie was caught pretty much upriver from here. That state record, I think, has been broken again. I don't know where the new muskie was caught, if they're registering it as a state record. I'll find out hopefully here soon, and who knows, I might make a video about it. Now, two things to note about Melton Hill. One, it is more of a flooded river than anything else. It's not really that wide or that big, and it is next to a lot of Department of Energy property, like ORNL, Oak Ridge National Laboratory is right next to this lake. And that's pretty much, you know, about, I don't know, 4 miles that way. And it's a massive, massive amount. It goes down all the way to Melton Hill Dam and continues on the Clinch River, where I just was showing you Upper Watts Bar. So it goes on for a very long time, Department of Energy land. I would call this the Manhattan Project Lake. And that's why this little plaque right here says the Solway Bridge, the portal to the atomic age, because Oak Ridge is right over there. So you have ORNL, you have Y12, and then you have the old gaseous diffusion plant that has been renamed several times. It was K25. I think it's called like the Heritage Center now, I think. I don't know. They just keep changing the name of it. It's just a huge mess of a site that they've been cleaning up for years and years and years. The way they refined uranium quickly was a very caustic mess. And that's why, you know, that site is just a disaster, the gaseous diffusion plant. Now I think I'm going to grab my fishing rod and maybe fish here for a little bit. If you saw in the background, my buddy Clint was helping some locals get their boat out of the water. They were having trouble getting it on their trailer. But my buddy Clint is here, and I think that's Peter too. So they're both fishing this spot. And maybe I'll make a video of it too. I brought gulp minnows and I'm hoping to catch some perch. So maybe I'll do a gulp minnow perch video. So just stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed. If you like videos like this where I'm, you know, just talking about my local areas, hit that thumbs up and I'll see if I can come up with some more ideas to do videos like this. Now, as always, I want to thank you for taking your time out of your day to actually watch this video. I really, really appreciate it. They are saying that it's kind of slow. So the possibility of me actually, you know, getting a video done here might not happen. Who knows? Just stay tuned to find out. But wish me luck. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you next time.